Take under God out of the pledge. First, I'm going to go over a little bit of history about the pledge itself. So the original American pledge was as follows. I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this was written in 1892 by Francis Bellamy. And it's important to note the original purpose of the pledge was, according to Francis Bellamy, why he wrote it was that he had hoped that the pledge would be used by citizens in any country. I thought that was interesting. He did not make this for America. He wrote this for all countries, for any citizen to be able to understand the concept and give their loyalty to their country in the same way. So that's why at the top I have American there in quotes, because this really wasn't written as an American pledge originally. So then we get to the 1923 revision, 30 years later, which is, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we've basically added the name of the flag that we're pledging to, just to clarify, which it could have been taken as defeating the original purpose, but it would be pretty simple for each country to just add their own name after the flag, so that we're, like I said, clarifying what country we are pledging our allegiance to. So I don't really have a problem with this revision, and neither did anyone else. Then we get 30 years later, again, the 1954 revision. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this is when under God was added. It was added by President Eisenhower in response to a communist threat. So I assume that he felt he needed to unite his citizens a bit more and give a sense of morale and spirituality to patriotism, which this was the way that he thought he should do it. Again, I'm assuming because of his beliefs. And while it's understandable, that doesn't make the revision acceptable. And I have at the bottom Bellamy's daughter, so the original author of the pledge. His daughter objected to this change, and I'm sure she's not the only one because we're still objecting to it now. What is the pledge itself? I really want to be clear and make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about. So I looked up definition of pledge. As a noun, it can be a solemn promise or undertaking, or it could be a thing that is given as security for the fulfillment of a contract or payment of a debt and is liable to forfeiture in the event of failure. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. The third definition is to commit a solemn promise. It's the verb form of the first definition. So the first definition I feel is much more casual. The second really seems to fit the context, as it is a contract that we are pledging our allegiance to our country for as long as it is things like indivisible and one nation. So the pledge is a contract. It's a legal contract. It's something that we recite to show that we agree with it. And so let's read this definition again. A thing that is given as security, so a contract, for the fulfillment of a contract or payment of a debt, and is liable to forfeiture in the event of failure. So if this contract is not met, it's null and void. It doesn't count for anything. People think that, arguing over the details of the pledge is kind of silly, but that's a big deal. If you are actually nullifying the importance of loyalty to your country, then what does that mean? Does that mean treachery is no big deal? I mean, this is an important thing for us to all understand and agree on. And I've got a couple more definitions, just bear with me. Allegiance is loyalty, and I don't have it there, but loyalty also means support. Support of a subordinate to a superior, or of an individual to a group or cause. So the latter is more relevant here. We're talking about an individual citizen pledging their support of, in this case, the country, the national government, which in the pledge is defined as the republic. So what's the republic? It is a state in which supreme power is held by the people and their elected representatives, which has an elected or nominated president rather than a monarch. So this is clearly talking about the type of government system that the United States currently has. And it's important to realize that at any time, if this government system changes, or were to change, the pledge would mean nothing. We would owe no loyalty to whatever new government system we would have. Again, these are really important things to understand. So what exactly are we agreeing to in this legal contract? It's basically broken up into two parts. The first is what I am pledging as a citizen in this contract. I pledge allegiance, we already talked about what that means, to the flag of the United States of America. And that's kind of symbolic, so we've added and to the republic for which it stands. So we understand the first part is a symbol, and that's kind of more of the traditional part. But we're being really specific when we say we're talking about the republic that the flag stands for. So they clearly go together, and as I said, the republic is a specific government type, and that's what we're pledging our allegiance to. That can't change. And then the second part, which are basically the terms or the requirements that the country has to meet in order for the contract to still apply. So the country has to be one nation, can't divide, which is clarified, indivisible, not dividable. There has to be liberty and justice for all. And when I see for all, I assume it means for everyone, every single citizen equally, with no one being more superior than another. And then, of course, liberty, meaning that everyone has their rights and freedoms as established, and justice, meaning that we will enforce those rights and freedoms. So for as long as the country is one country that provides us with our rights and freedoms, we pledge our loyalty. So where does under God come into play? Well, right now, the second part of that contract states, one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. So now the country also has to agree to be under God. The government has to agree to be under God. If it is not under God, your allegiance means nothing. So is the country really under God? And this could mean a couple of things. It could mean that literally we are beneath or underneath, as a location or a position, we are under God. I don't think that's what it means, but if it is, then that would mean that that is something that the country stands by as a fact, which it doesn't. That is a belief. That is a religious belief. And it's not something that the country supports. I'll talk about that later. The second belief is, or under his command, his control or his power, etc. That's what it means. So is the country under God in those ways? No. We don't follow the Bible. We don't make our laws based on religion. So I would say that religion has no power here. God, whatever his laws and sins are defined as in the Bible and His instructions, they hold no bearing in our country. Our country is not under God. Not the whole country. I understand a lot of people believe that they are, but not the whole country. I'm going to talk about that more with the separation of church and state. So why can't the government agree to be under God? The reason is that the government has agreed not to be religious. The government has promised that as part of the liberty term in the contract. So, again, clarifying, church refers to religious organizations and practices of any kind. State refers to the government or public representation of the people. So which is the pledge? It's not part of a religious organization. The country is not a religious organization. That's why we have separation of church and state. And therefore we don't participate in any religious practices, or shouldn't. The pledge is part of the state category, which I have at the bottom. Which is the pledge? It is a public, equal representation of all of the nation's people. And as I said, under God is not an accurate representation of all of the nation's people. It's a representation of about 80%. The other 20% are misrepresented. The government cannot misrepresent us like that because they have agreed not to by giving us liberties such as freedom of religion. So you have the right to practice your religion. And this is, before I start, this is my message to those who would oppose taking under God out of the pledge. This is what it means to have the freedom of religion. Sometimes they don't understand. And they think that taking under God out of the pledge would be stepping on their freedom of religion. Let me explain what freedom of religion means. You have the right to practice your religion. The government does not. They've agreed not to. They've promised that to me, to all of us. You have the right to pray. No one is taking your rights away from you. But you do not have the right to force me to pray to your God. You don't have that right. You have the right to your beliefs. You can have your beliefs. You can have your religion. You can have your religious practices. You do not have the right to force me to recite your beliefs as if they are my beliefs. That is what you are doing with keeping under God in the pledge. It is something that represents all of us. And you don't have the right to misrepresent us.